Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for watching. We are here at USA Global TV, and thanks to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio out of New York. I am Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is The Wise Ones. This is a program where we feature people from all over the world who have done something really spectacular with their life, and they are in a place of gratitude and want to help assist other people with their knowledge and expertise. I will be joined by Mr. Red O'Loughlin, and right now we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. So we're going to play a couple of things in tribute to people of Ukraine. So take a look and stay with us, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you.
Меня зовут Маша, мне 9 лет, я живу в Красногоровке, у меня все хорошо. Кушать у нас есть, пить у нас есть, сахар у нас есть, все есть. Только дров не хватает. На буржуйке, когда у нас есть, вот эти мы дрова пособираем, закинем, оно горит. Например, в 10 запалили, в 11 закончили, вода нагрелась, и все, и мы купаемся.
В наш дом 4 было прямых попаданий, так что мы боимся. Человека даже осколками поранило, забрали в больницу с 6-го подъезда соседа, так что мы тоже боимся. У нас много деток, деваться нам некуда, нас никто нигде не ждет.
Когда вырасти, я хочу найти работу такую, чтобы я помогала людям, которые бедные, там.
Just call my name if you ever feel down or feel afraid, 'cause nothing is stronger than men who stand as one for a long time.
All the things that passed, million times the troubles seem to be
Easy, and days felt so bright with you.
I remember you always been my family member.
That's the time when we need to stand together. I made this song for you. Hope it reaches and puts a little bit
Smile on you
and fills your mind with hope, because you're not alone. We're together
in this love.
we stand forever.
Peace is what we need. Everyone knows the truth, no matter which side you pick. You might realize
You're not alone. We're together in this love. We stand forever.
one thing to remember, and magic words we need. Slava
USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. A little choked up after watching that beautiful tribute. Red, welcome to the program. Red, you are just such a sight for sore eyes. I'm always happy when I see you. You are the epitome of the wise ones. And actually, I'm so glad that we have this stage today together. Our guest is not able to make it. It's going to reschedule, but it gives our audience more time to learn about you because there's a lot there, my friend.
Well, there's a lot to learn about both of us.
Well, touche. Thank you for that. So, Red is the trifecta here at USA Global TV. And what that means is he is a co-host. He is one of our expert presenters on Talking Heads, and that show is actually coming up right after this. And he is an elevated listener, which means you need to know this person. You need to reach out to Red O'Loughlin, and you need to work with him. You get to know him personally. I've been working with him for how long? Over a year.
Well, over a year, because it was before. I'm gonna say a year. This is March. I'm gonna say we're getting closer to a year and a half than a year.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Red has accomplished so much. He's been all over the world. He's seen it all, especially from the air. So, Red, I'm going to spotlight you. Tell our audience who's joining for the first time, who is Red O'Loughlin and what does it mean to be a wise one?
Okay, let's go ahead and take the easy one first. The wise one is anybody on this show, and these are guests, and it's a very wide open criteria. But we're looking for somebody. I was just talking with a publisher, and he has 92 different clients. And just because somebody is a New York Times bestselling author doesn't necessarily qualify them for the wise ones. I said to the publisher, or publicist. I said, I'm looking for somebody who has a background that is of value to our audience. What value can they share? There's something that's happened in their life, good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter. But it's more than just writing a book. And that's what we're looking for. Now, a CEO of a company, if he's been at that same company 40 years, he's had that one experience. But if he's been, 4 or 5 different levels of management at several different companies through several different economic up and downs, that's of interest. We had a guy on that's a lawyer, and he happened to be a Argentine ballroom dancer. He had just gotten back from visiting 5 or 6 countries in Africa. And we spent a lot of time talking about Africa that we never even thought was going to be there. But there was a lot of value in what we were talking about. So when we're looking about wise ones, we're talking about value. How much can we add to the audience? Not just a discussion, but some real facts that can help others. And that's really what we're looking for. Now, myself, let's see if I can go down the numbers pretty easy. Oldest of 9 kids, married 54 years this year, just in a few months. Got 2 kids, 3 grandkids. I've written 5 books. Got 5 advanced degree, 5 degree college degrees, not advanced, not all of them, but 5 collegiate degrees, 7 professional certifications, been to 61 countries in the world. And I'm sure there's a few other numbers out there, but numbers aren't everything. It's like being 20 years working for a company. Is it 20 years of real experience, or is it 1 year 20 times? So numbers are nice, but they're not always totally indicative of that person. One of my things that I loved, my very first love, was chemistry, long before I ever met my wife. And unfortunately, I got my degree and I got an invitation to Vietnam. Boom, boom, just within weeks. Well, that happened. I flew over there for a while. I'm a Navy aviator, retired Navy captain, 31 plus years in the Navy. And I got a chance to, as I said, 61 countries. I got a chance to see a bit of the world. But at the beginning of my career, Vietnam was there. The war was over. They let a lot of people off active duty. I joined the reserves for 20 years. And then the Berlin Wall fell, I think, in 1989. And about that time, the peace dividend meant that they could get rid of a lot of people. Well, they did. Well, at my level at that time, they let go way more than they planned. And there was a lot of staffs missing people. So I hunted around. I found some active duty jobs that I could do. And I spent a couple of years in New York City, a couple of years in the Bay Area, California, and my last 2 years in Stuttgart, Germany. And those are things. But my Stuttgart, Germany was really an oversight role. I had 5,500 reservists in 89 countries in Europe and Africa that I was responsible for from an oversight perspective. And my main reason for being called over there was in support of the Bosnian War. And then while we were there, they escalated into Kosovo. And I had a lot of people on staff that could handle those kinds of things. I had a lot of people in the field in various places trying to figure out what did we do wrong when we brought a reservist on active duty and sent them to Bosnia? What did we do right? And we try to eliminate those things. So from an oversight perspective, I thought we did a pretty good job of talking to nearly 25,000 reservists over a year and a half period of time. And we made a lot of changes. Why would somebody want to go in, get their shots to go overseas, and then as soon as they get to the next duty station, they ignore the shots? Well, that's not right. You don't want to get double shots anytime. But that was one of the ones we fixed. The same thing with training. They were all trained. They had all the quals up to date. But when they went to another place, they had to do their training all over again. A waste of time. Anyway, we fixed a lot of problems. But my joy nowadays is to research the human body from a chemical perspective and to figure out what causes things to happen. Why do certain things happen in a certain way? Well, from a chemical perspective, it's pretty easy to tell. And that is when you look at what causes a particular reaction. If I were to take something simple like calcium, how does calcium get to the bones? Well, you just think, okay, I drink some milk and I get calcium. That's what the commercials would lead you to believe. Drink milk, have healthy bones. But that's not always true. You need calcium that's in an absorbable form. And any kind that calcium is from a food, it's absorbable. But if you're just taking a calcium carbonate pill without a meal, chances are it's going to end up in the toilet. That's the way it works. Most of us are deficient in magnesium. Magnesium is needed in order to have that calcium become more bioavailable to the body. So if you are deficient in magnesium and you're taking a calcium supplement or milk, then that calcium is in the toilet. But if you do have magnesium, now we're working. We at least get the calcium ready to get into the body. As it's passing through the duodenum, if you have enough vitamin D3, the sunshine vitamin, then it will actually go from the duodenum into the bloodstream. Okay, we got it there. Not enough vitamin D3, it's in the toilet. So now we have a major problem, because if you don't have enough vitamin K2, the calcium is now going to go to your heart valves and arteries, called plaque. That's not where you want the calcium to go. You want it to go to your bones. You need vitamin K2 for that particular operation to happen. So you need calcium, you need magnesium, you need vitamin D3, and you need vitamin K2. That's the chemical reactions that must happen each stage along the way. That's what I research. That's what I study. That's what I look for. And when I can find something, well, if they don't have magnesium, this doesn't happen. If they have it, it happens. If they have too much of something else. And so I do a lot of studies in those areas, and I write all the time about it. I think I have almost 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, almost every single one of them on some aspect of health and wellness. I have an Alzheimer's book coming out. We just finished, Dr. JACALYN and I, on the Talking Heads. I did, I think, 6 programs talking about age-related diseases. Do you know what causes you to age? Well, there's 2 primary causes, and then everything else is a factor. So obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, smoking, those are all factors. They accelerate or decelerate the aging process. But your human growth hormone and your telomere length are 2 things that determine the rate at which you age and your susceptibility or risk to age-related diseases. And so those are kinds of things that I go into on a regular basis. I finished that particular segment on Alzheimer's and age-related diseases and the aging process. Well, the next part of the Talking Heads, and that starts in about 38 minutes, is going to be talking about how do you write and publish a book for free? For free. In other words, everything you do, there's no money out of your pocket. There's a lot of ways to do it, and we're going to talk about it over the next several weeks. And so that's the next topic that I'm going to be introducing on the Talking Heads. Will we come back to health and wellness? Absolutely. That's my real passion. That's the things that gets me up and gets me going every day. So I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. JACALYN and see. I know she keeps a load of questions that she wants to ask, and go ahead, ask.
You know, Red, for people who are not aware, you and I meet on a regular basis because you and I did the first book together, Behind the Green Screen, and now the second one, Adversity to Awesome. It's coming out next month. And I always learn something new about you. You are a fascinating person. I love that you shared about the numbers, right? The numbers, but there's so much more behind, in front of, next to the numbers. And a question I have for you, I wasn't aware that you were the overseer, I guess is the right word, of so many people. And I'm wondering, from going from that into it being an entrepreneur, that's a big shift. And which do you like better? Do you like better working on your own, or do you like working with a team and being a leader slash coach?
I really enjoy both roles. It's taken a long time being in the entrepreneurial world to feel competent. That's one that's just been very difficult for me because it's just a usually you're relying on the resources of a company, you're relying on the team that you're with. You have a lot of expertise, there's a lot of credibility there. You need to go training, you go. Don't even worry about the cost. You just go. In the military, they want you something, they'll send you. It's just that's the way it is. You just the resources are, as you know, you've been quite a few different places, and when you go somewhere, the company picks up the tab. That's good. You always have the good and the bad on the leadership above and even below. You know, my personal preference on leadership is I want my supervisors, managers, they have to make mistakes on their own to learn. If they never make a mistake, they're too afraid to make a mistake, and that's not right either. They need to be able to make a mistake, learn from it, and not make that same one again. And so you usually have a lot of problems. If I'm bringing an engineer in as a supervisor, he may be a fantastic engineer and have no personal skills at all. So when I interview people, I always do the what if. You know, what if you came in and this happened at work? You know, this person, whatever. I try to give a lot of personal deals that I've experienced in my life, so that I'm getting an idea of that person's competency in dealing with people. Now, if they've been a manager for 20 years, they've probably seen a lot of that stuff. But if you haven't been there and you're brand new, then you can't tell them everything to do. You have to let them do their job, and you have to let people grow. You can't keep people back. And so, somebody says, "Hey, I got this opportunity. Hey, go for it. Hey, I support you any way you can. I write you whatever." But those are things that you have to have your people trust in you. And then, so there's a lot of stuff in the corporate world that I loved. I got three degrees because of my company paying for it and because of the GI Bill. And then the other one I got was with the Naval War College. But those are things that are really benefits. Those perks are great with regard to the corporate world. And you know that so very well from all the stuff you've done. But being an entrepreneur, it's literally putting a different hat on. And that hat comes, well, now all of a sudden, I used to tell people to do that, or it was done for me. And I know how to budget, but I don't have resources coming in because I haven't sold anything yet. People came to me because they had a problem with one of our products, and we would look at the reliability or some aspect of whatever happened. Now you have to go out and get your own clients, your own things. And so you have to develop your services. There's just so many different things that were already done for you in the real world of corporate that you don't have as a single person working in an entrepreneurial world. So as you're trying to establish the business, you got to learn, what's taxable, what's not taxable. When I'm doing work on my books for people, as long as my fingers are touching a keypad, that's taxable in the state of Texas. I have to pay sales tax on that. But if I'm consulting with them as if I'm talking right now, that's not taxable in the state of Texas. And so if I have to be able to break down that time in order to identify how much of my business income is taxable and not. Never worried about that before. And then you have all the different parts of how do you get people. Well, writing a book to me is one of the best ways to gain credibility. If you're a speaker and you don't have a book and you're giving the same speech over and over and over again, that's probably a good time to have that book. You're a subject matter expert. You really need to be introduced as the author of a book on the same topic that you're speaking on. It's actually a whole lot simpler than you think. Now, I did my first book. It took forever. Second book didn't take as long. Third book, not as long. So we learn each time to make these things a little faster. Dr. JACALYN and I are working on her next book, Adversity is Awesome. And we started in January. It's going to be published in April. And it's just going like this, but especially since we're getting down to the last couple of weeks. And there's still a fair amount of work to do, but it'll get done. And so the entrepreneurial world, the responsibility is all yours. You decide to sleep in the morning, fine, sleep in that morning. But you're going to pay the price down the road because that time was not spent in the business that you needed to be in, whether that business be learning, reading, what's the latest in whatever you're doing. I spend a lot of time every day researching a lot of things on health and wellness. I also research stuff on publishing because that's the next topic that I'm talking about. But we have to read a lot. We have to know what's going on. We have to be on top of our own industry. If I'm going to be going out and speaking on Alzheimer's, I ought to know what the absolute latest stuff is. And when I do that, I spoke to Rotary Club last month on Alzheimer's. And I went back in, even though I have I've been over 40 articles on Alzheimer's, I needed to go back in and make sure, is there anything really new? Because if somebody can say something, hey, I saw this thing last week on Alzheimer's. What do you think about this? And I look silly if here I am, a subject matter expert, and I don't even know what's the latest thing published. So you got to keep up to date. And those things, you have to keep up to date in the corporate world, but it's not at the same level of immediacy and consistency. You get in there, you're a mechanical engineer. Generally speaking, you don't go back and get your master's in mechanical engineering. You have a certain skill set. But when you start getting into the entrepreneurial world, things change. Pre-COVID, COVID, post-pandemic, those are all three different worlds, and we need to be able to adapt each time. And so those are the things that are really critical in the entrepreneurial aspect. So if you're thinking like a corporate person, supervisor, manager, whatever you may happen to be, salesman, engineer, some people can transition very easily. It's not the norm. It's a big learning curve. I think most learning curves are a good 6 months to 9 months on something you've never done before. I think of the entrepreneurs, if they're going to become effective, they really need maybe 2 or 3 years because there's just so many little different aspects of this, that, and whatever. Before COVID, we used to network in person, go to a meeting, give your 1 or 2 minute spiel, meet, shake hands, and you go on and then follow up later on, do a one-on-one, whatever. Nowadays, everything is Zoom. What is the post-pandemic world going to be? Definitely a combination of both. I can't go to a networking event in Boston, but I can get with 30 to 60 people easily on a Zoom meeting, and they're all over the country, all over the world. So we have to learn the skills, whether it's StreamYard that we're on right now, or Zoom, or others that are out there, because each one has different aspects. Just like when we came up and we're doing the digital world, they had WordPerfect and Volkswriter and Microsoft Word, and then depending which company you went to, they had this one, and then you had to learn that one all over again. Then you went over here, it was Lotus 123. Then the new company had whatever you call it, Excel. And so there's just different things there. And it's an amazing world. They'll train you on it, but you have to be competent. And I think that's a downfall for a lot of companies. They bring in a new software and they don't fully train the people because there's no time to train people. My wife's complained about that many, many times, that they'll bring something in to her company and then all of a sudden they expect them to know how to use it without the training. But regardless, anyway, I think I need to get back to Dr. JACALYN so we can figure out what the next question is.
I just wanted to share with you, I always am so excited by the knowledge that you share based on your experience and your research. Since last week, I've been fasting for at least 12 hours every day. I got up to 17 hours on Saturday, and I was even able to go to my solid core class, which is really hard. And I was really strong. So thank you for that, because I didn't think I could go past 8 hours. And I'm going to try each day to put another half an hour on there so I can get to 24 hours. And then who knows what's going to happen.
Dr. JACALYN's talking about intermittent fasting, where you're fasting for so many hours at a time within a 24-hour period. That may be 12 hours, maybe 10. But most of us are probably at 10 to 12, where we get up in the morning, we have breakfast, and then by the time we get home from work, we have something to eat. And that's about 12 hours, maybe a little bit more. But what about not eating for part of that time? Maybe you have a later breakfast. Maybe you just have a breakfast and you skip lunch. Every time you don't eat, your body, it has a chance to recover from everything that's going on. Yeah, part of it is the digestive system. That's going to go on. Now, if you're drinking alcohol at lunch or dinner, the digestive system goes on vacation. It stops until the body rids itself of all the alcohol, because it's produced, I think, as a aldehyde, or it's the body produces a chemical which it recognizes as a poison. And the first thing the body wants to do is get rid of any poison that's there. So let's say you have a couple, 3 glasses of wine, and you had a 9 o'clock meal, and now you're really tired, ready to go to bed. You go to sleep, and then, all of a sudden you wake up and you look at the clock, and it's 2:07 in the morning. Well, that's generally the time that all of a sudden your body is now transitioning from, I got rid of all the alcohol processed through the liver. Now let me get on my body, my duty of all this digested food that's now sitting there waiting to finish digestion. So there's a lot of things as you're going through that. But if you're not eating, the body has a chance to do that. And when you sleep at night, the body makes all the repairs necessary to the muscles, to everything. But now you go on a fast. Why do that? Well, fasting has so many reasons. You look at caloric restriction, you're not taking in as many calories. That when they do it to animals, you find out that they live 10, 20, 30, even 40% longer. And when you compare somebody who's living 20 or 30% longer than their peer who died, their susceptibility to age-related diseases is very reduced. And so you're looking at a situation that if I'm cutting back on my total calories, I'm probably going to live longer, and I'm probably going to be healthier. That's just the way that our bodies work. We get in that near starvation mode. Now, I do extended fast, and I think this is what Dr. JACALYN was alluding to earlier. I do a 72-hour fast every month. Well, this month I decided to start on Ash Wednesday, the first day of Lent. And as such, normally I do 72, but I said, let's just kind of see how it goes. So I went to 96, 100, 100, just going down. And I got up there around 5 days, 6 days. I said, I've done almost this much before, around 150, I think is the most I've ever done in the previous time. And I've done this for years. I said, I'm going to do at least a week, 166 hours, 66, 68, 168 hours, I think. And then I said, well, another half day and I can do 180 hours. So I did 180 hours and I felt good the whole time. I was doing a lot of, checking my blood pressure, checking this, that, and everything else, just to make sure I had, there was 1 or 2 times I had a little craving, but it was just thirst. I take a little bit of iced tea and that was fine. So on my fast, I have water or unsweet iced tea. But what does it really do inside the body? When you start going beyond 24 hours, one of the things that causes you to age is a decrease in the amount of human growth hormone. That decrease, it's like there's chaos happening all around, and human growth hormone's in charge. Okay, you do this to the bones, you do this to the heart, you do this to the gut. Somebody's in charge. It's human growth hormone. You're growing. As a toddler, you're growing leaps and bounds. Your levels of human growth hormone are probably somewhere around 2,000 milligrams per milliliter, or whatever the measure is. Okay, you get in your teenage years, maybe down around 1,500. You get in your 20s, maybe down around 1,000. Now you start getting in your 30s and 40s. Now you're down in the hundreds or low hundreds. You get in your 60s and 70s, you're under 100. You get down, I'm 70, I'll be 76 here in a couple of months or so. And now your human growth hormones are very low. Nobody's in charge. And when that happens, disease and everything else has the ability, the risk is there. And so the human growth hormone is accelerated when you fast. So if you're fasting for 12, 15 hours a day, every day you're ramping up the human growth hormone so that you're back at the levels you had when you were in your 20s or 30s, and everything is somewhat back in control again. Not everything, but from a life extension perspective, that helps you get down into your 80s and 90s and 100s without having the risk of a lot of age-related diseases. And that's a big deal. You don't want somebody changing your diaper for the last 5 or 8 years of your life. The other part, the telomere length, it's also based on how well you are you feed yourself, your nutrition levels, exercise or other factors in there. But you want to have good nutrition. I tell the story about my wife quite often in my writings and in my speaking. Dr. Terry Wall is a internist, I believe. Very late in life, she came down with MS, multiple sclerosis. She did some research and she ended up in a wheelchair. And years later, she finished her research. She wrote a book called The Walls Protocol. My wife was having breast cancer surgery. We went through all the chemo and everything. It could not address all the side effects, but most of them I got somewhat under control. But the one with fatigue, she was just asleep all the time, could not get her out of bed. She was taking 1 or 2 hour, 2 hour naps even when she was awake. And so between radiation and chemotherapy, that period of time in there, I had read the Walls Protocol, and I mentioned to my wife, and I said, Marilyn, why don't we think about this? We asked the radiologist, and he says, oh, her fatigue will probably get worse. Best case, it'll stay the same. So on day 1 of radiation, we adopted one of the protocols in the Walls Protocol, the diet. Her diet is one in which over 30 nutrients the body needs on a daily basis is the body craves. And if we're deficient in things, let's take something simple, deficient in vitamin B12, it mimics Alzheimer's. If you're deficient in other things, iron, anemia, increased risk of infections. A lot of things we're deficient in because we're not eating the foods that we really should be eating. If you're a steak and potatoes person, you're not getting anything green, chances are you're gonna really enjoy life for a while, and then you're not going to enjoy life for a while. But these things are important. So what about that diet and my wife's fatigue? Well, I noticed that when we woke up on the day 3 of her radiation treatment. This was every day, except for Sundays. She would all of a sudden she felt good. We get under radiation. She goes through radiation. She feels fine. She comes back. She doesn't take a nap. New person. And then a few days later, she's not taking any naps at all. She's feeling good. And then she decides she's going to go back up to the church and volunteer where she had been before. She did that. On the last day of radiation, we're in Houston, Texas. We left around noontime and drove to Jacksonville, Florida. We're going over there to pick up my parents' estate stuff. So we get over there 2 days later. I rent a U-Haul, and 72 hours after her last radiation treatment, she's driving 500 miles by herself in the car, following me on the way home. So 500 miles one day, 500 miles another day, the next day, and we're back home again. And that's from somebody who just went through weeks of radiation, had months of chemotherapy, all because of diet. Diet is super critical. So when you're fasting, that's great. But when you come off the fast, you need to be eating the right kinds of foods. And so that's just as critical as fasting, because you want those nutrients. You don't want to be deficient in anything. And I'm going to go back over to Dr. JACALYN again, because we're here toward the end of our show.
A wealth of knowledge, Red. So for people who are interested in nutrition and they're not really following any book or protocol, they basically just go into the pharmacy or the vitamin store and they just look around and go, oh yeah, I'll get this and I'll get that, and some of this vitamin E sounds good. Is that a good recipe for continued good health?
It's better than not doing it. However, you have to look at what the synthetic vitamins are. I mentioned vitamin B12 a minute ago. When you buy a pill, vitamin B12 is a cobalamin. Cobalamins do not survive stomach acid. So as you take it in, it's worthless. It ends up in the toilet. You mentioned vitamin E. Vitamin E is 8 different chemicals. You're not getting all of them in there, especially if it's a synthetic. You're getting a DL alpha tocopherol. That's your 1 of 8, and it's synthetic. It's literally worthless. If you have that much, and I'm talking squeeze your fingers as tight as you can, that much of alpha tocotrienol, another one of the vitamin E's in your brain, chances are you'll survive a stroke very well and not have any side effects from it. That's one of those things that they found out that, hang on, I'm going to have to, client called and I have to tell them I can't talk to them right now. Those things happen in business. As we're saying, I don't have a secretary to take care of that stuff. So you got to take care of it when you do. So just push the little buttons and can't talk right now. And technology. But anyway, each one of those things have a problem. You take vitamin A. Well, if you're taking vitamin A from whatever natural source that has other cofactors with it. Might have 50 different cofactors that make that vitamin much better. And so when you're taking the natural foods, you have parsley, you have spinach, you have kale, you have all those things I used to not ever eat when I was younger, ever. I was strictly avoid greens. But once you find out why things work, well, maybe they don't taste so bad. And so I've changed my lifestyle totally. I didn't start this thing until my wife's breast cancer came about. Most of my research was on a couple of books I had written on self-improvement. I was going around the country speaking on motivation and things like that with my mentor. Well, when my wife had a problem, I went back to my chemical background, chemistry, and I started, what's causing all these things? And so that's when I started discovering for myself, and that's when I found my real passion. Maybe you can tell it's in my voice, I don't know, that we can improve our lives. And that's why I wrote a book on longevity, and I wrote another book on longevity. And I have a book on Alzheimer's that's it's just about right there. I can see it. It's all the chapters there. My wife has proofed it, and it's going to be impressed here very quickly. But the pills are good when you don't have anything, but not every solution is going to be solved by a pill. And so you have to look at what's there. Just because you're taking a calcium doesn't mean calcium is absorbable in the body. That calcium might be a calcium carbonate, which means you really have to have food with it to digest. A calcium citrate's fine. You look at the other things in there. Oxides and carbonates are very difficult for the body to absorb. So you need either to take them with the food, but then some foods you don't need. You're taking omega-3 fatty acids. If you don't already have a fat in the body, just taking them without anything else, you're minimizing the effect of getting that fat into the body. But there's just so many different aspects of that. And as you learn a little bit more, okay, I'll make this change, incremental changes. Okay, you're making incremental changes right now. You're not going 8 hours kneading. You're going 8.5 hours, 9, you said 11, 12, whatever. Incrementally make it at your own pace. If you just start out by 12 hours and, sugar, what do you call it? When addicts are coming out of something, withdrawals. Sometimes people have terrible sugar withdrawals because they depended so much on it. And all of a sudden they don't eat anything for 12, 15, 18 hours and they are going crazy. Headaches, who knows what. So you got to be kind of careful. So modify your diet and then just start extending the amount of time that you're fasting. And just little by little. I mean, I didn't start out fasting 72 hours. It took me probably 6 months to get up that level. And I have to talk to myself a lot 2 days before I fast. It's not one of those things that I just, okay, I'm going to start today. I feel pretty good. If I do, I can do it because I know I have. One of those things your subconscious mind will help you do because you've had success in it. But it's not as comfortable. So I tell my wife, I'll tell friends, I'm going to start a 72-hour fast on whatever, today's St. Patty's Day. I'm going to start on St. Patty's Day. I tell them that a couple, 3 days into that. Now I have people I've committed to, and I have that accountability. And now that just puts a little different twist on my mind, my subconscious mind. I have somebody now measuring me. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and eat or whatever. Yeah, you can do that, but is that really what you want to do? And so there's a lot of things. One of the books I wrote on the subconscious mind, there's a lot of different ways to talk to it. And when you say, I want something or I need something, those are words that connect with the conscious mind. When you talk to, I expect something, that's a subconscious thought. That goes right straight into the subconscious mind. Expectations, intentions. There are certain ways that we can talk to ourselves. But you say, I want a piece of cake. That's fine. You're talking to the subconscious mind. And because it's there and because you've had it before, you're probably going to have one. But if you tell the conscious mind, I'm not going to have a piece of pie because you're on a diet, well, number one, it doesn't understand the diet because you failed so many times. It doesn't understand negatives. So you say, I'm not going to have something. So what you're saying, I'm going to have something. And so you're sabotaging yourself by not using the right words and not understanding how we work. And there's so many things out there that tell us that.
It's really fascinating. And to your point about giving up something, I gave up caffeine. Now it's 3 years and 3 months, and I don't even miss it. And I had no problem doing it. It was not a big deal. Sugar, I've gone off of and then on back and forth. But when I would wake up, up until a week ago, I would immediately, like literally, I am out of the bedroom into the kitchen and I'm eating a protein bar, which is all, who knows what's even in there. So I stopped doing that probably 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, something like that. Then I was eating granola bars, which are all bad. So I stopped doing that. So it's little by little. Now I don't eat breakfast at all.
Well, in Eastern philosophy, they don't care whether you eat breakfast or not. In Western philosophy, they've already trained you that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That's why we have so many breakfast cereals and everything else, because that's the culture over here. You wake up, you're really dehydrated because of sleeping overnight. Uh, when you urinate in the morning, half of your weight loss overnight is probably through exhalation from your breath, and then you have a certain amount of liquid that comes out. So you're getting, your body's dehydrated. First thing you really need to do is take a big glass of water, and you take that nice refreshing water. That usually calms down a lot of things in the body instantly. A little bit later on, you say, oh, maybe I'm getting a little hungry. Well, maybe have another glass of water, or some, in your case, maybe decaffeinated, whatever, or whatever it may happen to be. But it doesn't have to be, I got to have a granola bar, I got to have a cereal, I got to have bacon and eggs, whatever it may happen to be. Those are things that we become habits to, because that's what our comfort zones. We love, whatever that bacon and cheese omelet, whatever those things are that just really soothe the soul, and they become a habit. But I go off of it's 180 hours. I didn't miss anything. I could smell Chinese food. I could smell burgers. I could smell anything, and it just bounced off me like Teflon. Now I drive down the street. That smells pretty good, and it starts to get the little juices running again. So you're not immune from it, but there are certain times when the body rejects it because you have a higher purpose. Or in my particular case, I'm fasting for a reason. Mm-hmm. I want a longer, healthier life, and since I wasted 70 years of it almost doing everything else, heaven only knows what. Now I'm trying to fix all those errors from an earlier life.
Well, thank you for your transparency about that. I was wondering when you started all of this, but life before, I guess, 6 years ago or so. We'll have to talk about that on another program.
Anytime.
Well, Red, we've come to the end of the show, and we need to say goodbye because we have your show coming up after this, Talking Heads. So you already told people what it was about, but for people who are just joining, what can they expect to hear today on Talking Heads?
We're going to talk about writing today. We're going to talk about the beginning part of how to write and publish your book for free. No dollars out of your pocket. We're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what are those thoughts in your mind before you actually sit down. Okay, I got this thought. I want to write a book. What do I want to? Yeah, I know what I want to write it on. But we're going to talk about taking that initial thought and then what can we do to really get started. So we may not actually get started, but we're going to do a lot of things before that pen hits the paper, or those fingers hit the keyboard, or you pick up the phone and start an audio transcription. There are a lot of things that probably you should do to make yourself more successful. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
All right, I'm excited. So to our audience members, please stay wherever you are watching us. Red and I will be running over to the other studio, and we'll be back shortly. But Red, for people who want to reach out, your banner is up. What's the best way to reach you, and who should contact you?
My email is the best way to reach me. That by far, I check it several times a day. red@redolaughlin.com. And if you're looking at the screen, you can see that. But if you're listening on radio or a podcast down the road, Red, R-E-D, like the color, O'Laughlin, OLAUGHLIN, Red O'Laughlin, one word, .com. Now, I'm also found at red.o'laughlin@gmail.com. So either one of those two work for me very well.
Okay, we've got that up there for people to see. All right, Red, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you very shortly.
Likewise.
Bye.
Take care, Dr. Jacalyn. Bye now.
Take care. And I just have one quick announcement for any of my friends who are in the United States and will be in the Philadelphia area on June the 12th. I will be at Lincoln Financial Field broadcasting live with some of my team members for a cause that's really near and dear to me. It's the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. And our big event coming up is called Take Steps. It's Take Steps and Kick IBD. So if you're interested and you'd like to be on my team, Dr. J's Colitis Crew, we will be running through the tunnel. We will be greeted by the cheerleaders. We will be walking on Lincoln Financial Field. And for those of you who are fans of the National Football League, this is where the Philadelphia Eagles play. So let's take a quick look at this clip, and then we will see you on the Wise Ones. I'm sorry, on the Wise Ones. We are on the Wise Ones. We'll see you on Talking Heads right after this. Thank you.